Hey everyone, welcome back to the realm. We are season 6 with our first full-length episode. Woo! My energy, people, energy.
Like fireworks, I do. Shoot off
So I'm Gina.
I'm Rich.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Rob.
I'm Amy.
And I'm still Brian.
Still Brian. Oh, you went from Jimbo number 1 to Brian. Last week's episode, he's Jimbo number 1 now, or number 2. And now you're back to Brian guy.
And that was Spirit Box 3000, but...
Oh, yeah. We have lots of names for Brian. Got lots of names for Brian. So for those of you watching on YouTube, Rich will be in and out of the frame because he ended up with a work emergency during this, but that's okay because we got this. So today we have, as you can see, another square here. We have a very special guest, and I am going to let her introduce herself. But today we're talking about zombies. So I know an epidemiologist, so I said, hey, epidemiologist, can you come on? Go on, take over and introduce yourself, Becca.
Hi, very excited to be here. My name is Becca. I'm an epidemiologist, as Gina said. So what that means is I specialize in surveillance of disease, whether that be in chronic disease or infectious disease. I got my master's in public health with epidemiology and an infectious disease concentration. So currently I work in public health. I've worked at the state, local, and municipal level. So some epidemiologists are really specialized where they might pick one virus like HIV and specialize in that. I tend to work more at the population level, but infectious disease has always been very interesting to me. And with that comes the possibility of maybe zombies.
So I have to say, Becca and I are coworkers actually. And so how this all started was we talk about all the cool stuff at work. So like, we found out that we both like weird stuff. And so we have these conversations. So whenever we were talking about these zombies, and she was talking about, like the possibilities and all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh. So this was like a year ago that I'm like, oh my gosh, would you come on the podcast and talk about this? But we're not doing the episode till like the following year because we like plan our stuff out for like a whole year. So she said yes, and so now the long-awaited time is over, and she is here. So thank you so much, Becca, for joining us, and we'll be picking your brain for sure. So I want to set the stage, and we'll probably bring up other types of zombies, obviously, but the one that I want to focus on is the most recent kind of show that everybody was crazy about called The Last of Us, right? So in The Last of Us, which also I found out is a video game. Mm-hmm. And is that how it started, Rob? I think you and I had this conversation. Did it start as a video game? Okay.
That's correct.
So, and it's essentially this virus that infects people and turns them into zombies. And the premise is it's a fungus-based zombie or like infection that passes on to people. We've seen other type of zombie movies, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the stage. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this show, sorry, you've had time to watch it. It got really popular last year. If you didn't watch it, you're lost. Like there's going to be some spoilers. So the very first episode, season 1, episode 1, the very first episode is a TV show, talk show. It's a fake TV show, talk show. And these 2 epidemiologists are being interviewed on this talk show. And I actually ended up like typing the monologue for that. And so I'm going to read the opening monologue for this because this is where I really want to get your thoughts on this. So if everybody can bear with me, this is the interview with this fake doctor, obviously, because it's all from the movies. And essentially, so I'm just going to be reading this one Dr. Newman's side of it. So these 2 guys are getting interviewed, and the host is asking them, if they're worried about a viral pandemic. So this one guy is worried about it, but this Dr. Newman says, no, I'm not worried about a viral pandemic because the world has basically always fought against virus and infection. And so man's always won in the end. The death toll of these viruses is kind of warlike numbers, but man always wins. But then he's asked, then do you believe that microorganisms pose, like, do they pose a threat? And he says, well, in most dire of ways. And he's asked, well, bacteria, is that like what you're worried about? And he says, no, fungus. And like the whole crowd gasps, and the other epidemiologist is like, what are you talking about? So this is the monologue where he goes on to say this, and this is really kind of trippy and really gets you thinking. He says, fungi seems harmless enough. Many species know otherwise because there are some fungi who seek not to kill but to control. He then mentions LSD, which is derived from a fungus, and notes that viruses can make us ill, but fungi can alter our very minds. And that there's a fungus that infects insects, gets inside an ant, for example, travels through its circulatory system to the ant's brain, and then floods it with hallucinogens. Now remember, this is the doctor's monologue, thus bending the ant's mind to its will. The fungus starts to direct the ant's behavior, telling it where to go and what to do, and like a puppeteer with a marionette, and it gets worse. The fungus needs food to live, so it begins to devour its host from within, replacing the ant's flesh with its own. But it doesn't let the victim die. No, it keeps it alive. It keeps the puppet alive by preventing decomposition. And how? Well, where do we get penicillin from? And the host says, fungus. And he's like, precisely. So he's then challenged by the other epidemiologist on the stage, saying that fungus of this kind is true. Yes, it's true. It can take over things, but it cannot survive in humans. And Dr. Newman comes back and says, true, fungi cannot survive its host's internal, if its host's internal temperature is over 94 degrees. And currently, there are no reasons for fungi to evolve. So this was back in 1962. And he says there is no reason for fungi to evolve to be able to withstand higher temperatures. But what if that were to change? What if, for instance, the world were to get slightly warmer? Well, now there's your reason to evolve. One gene mutates, and an I think it's Ascomycete. Is that correct, Becca? Or Candida, ergot,
up words.
cordyceps, aspergillus, any one of them could be capable of burrowing into our brains and taking control, not millions of us, but billions of us. Billions of puppets with poison minds permanently fixed on one unifying goal, to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary. And there are no treatments for this, no preventatives, no cures. They don't exist. It's not even possible to make them. So the scene closes with the host asking him, so what if that happens? And he says, we lose. So when I read the part about like LSD being a fungus and like, and it altering our minds, and then hearing about the ant thing, and then them talking about what if the planet, what if the environment were to warm up? Well, back in the 60s, we didn't really talk too much about, the change in our temperature, global warming. So what is your take on that? Like, tell us the truth. Like, can you break that down for us?
Definitely. So when I first saw this show, I lost my mind when it started with epidemiologists. I think in the last, 10 years, largely because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the transmission of disease and epidemics, pandemics has kind of been at the forefront of our minds. But a lot of people don't really think about the conditions necessary for that to arise. So fungi are absolutely wild, and I am by no means an expert in that. But to break it down, fungi is its own kingdom. So we have the animal kingdom, we have the plant kingdom, we have the fungi kingdom. And for a really long time, people thought that fungi were plants. But then when we started looking more at that biology of it, they found that essentially the cell wall is made of a similar material in fungi to insect exoskeletons. So they created its own kingdom because they realized, hey, this operates differently than plants. So fungi themselves, they're smart, and it's kind of scary and fascinating, but fungi are brilliant. They do these intricate webs, essentially, of mycelium, and they have their little tendrils of hyphae. So if you think about roots kind of underneath the trees, they make these whole cities of it, and they multiply fast. I'm talking about like half a kilometer in a day fast. And they talk to each other through electrical impulses and other mechanisms. So when The Last of Us started talking about fungi kind of communicating with each other, that's not completely unfounded. Would it happen in humans? Probably not. There are cases of fungi invading live hosts. So if you think of those zombie ants, which is what The Last of Us is actually based off of, the cordyceps fungi invades the ant, and it's essentially a parasite. So it takes, but the host doesn't really get anything from it. So fungi essentially are decomposers. They don't contribute to anything. They don't produce their own food like plants do. They just take and take and take. And they not only invade the ant's brain, but they form tendrils and webs and try to keep spreading. So there are essentially, I think, 4 stages to the zombie ant process, and they do end up dying. So the whole concept of the living dead or the undead or things that will not die, that's not going to happen in real life. And with these ants, it took millions of years, I think 40 millions of years, maybe, for this fungi to develop and evolve to the point that it had this power over the ants. So, where we're at with humans right now, I don't think something like The Last of Us would ever happen, but there's certainly there's fungi that get into humans through various mechanisms. You hear of thrush or ringworm, that results from fungi. You have mad cow disease in cows, and in some rare cases, if you eat contaminated meat from that, you could get Creutzfeldt-Jakob syndrome, which is neurodegenerative, and it leads to early dementia and walking around in what kind of looks like a zombie-esque fashion. So there's so many different ways that, in the right circumstances, in a long period of time, it totally could happen, but not in the world that we know it. But it's absolutely fascinating to think about the different ways that prions or viruses or fungi could essentially create human zombies.
Well, when you were talking about the tendrils, it made me think of in The Last of Us, because this is the part in The Last of Us that I just can't, like, I can handle a lot of things, but this, like, the tendrils that were the stuff that was coming out of the people's mouth was so incredibly disgusting and disturbing to me. And it just from, I don't know what it even reminded me of, but I can't, like, that was one image that I couldn't get out of my head. And in fact, today when I was like typing up the monologue, I was watching the season 1 and I was just typing as I was listening to it, and I saw those tendrils again, and I was like, "Oh my god, that is so disgusting." But so to your knowledge and the way that you understand disease working, as far as a fungus, apart from the ones that you mentioned, like crossing over and kind of taking over, like the zombie ants would, what? So you. What would it take, do you think, or just it just could never happen, or what would have to happen, I guess, maybe for something like that to happen? Do you know? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, I mean, so Jurassic Park is my favorite movie. And, the big quote, life finds a way. I
Right.
think that totally applies here. Like the epidemiologist said in the beginning of the show, you would have to have hosts that are compatible with it. So if our built environment changed and it led to human evolution where maybe body temperature changed or the way that we consume energy or release energy changes, maybe down the line. But humans, in the grand scheme of Earth, are very, very new. And who knows, honestly, if we're going to be around in a couple million years when that evolution would, slowly, slowly happen. So with fungi, no, I don't think that's a concern that humans need to have.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, I was just I was sitting here thinking, yeah, I mean, we likely wouldn't see it. And honestly, our core temperature, as I don't know if anybody knows this, but now our core temperature has dropped. Like the 98.6 was like the typical or ideal normal temperature, and what they're finding is people are coming in at lower temperatures now. That people are having lower temperatures than that on average. So our like
I
our our body temperatures, yeah, are like actually starting to go down a little bit. And I'll have to post one of the articles that I read about that because I found it very interesting. And I've even seen it myself. Like now I'm never like, I don't even think that I hit like 98.2 half the time with my body temperature.
Actually, I'm like 96 on average, 96 point something.
Yeah. So I think I'm like,
I thought I'm almost going to turn into a zombie.
So before we move on to the rest of the questions, I want to give the group a chance to kind of chime in and see if they have any questions for you as it relates to this Last of Us show.
I have a question.
Go.
So with The Last of Us and the whole storyline and, you know, the fungus and all of these things, do you think that they had anyone with like a solid knowledge of how fungus works in order to be able to come up with this storyline? Or do you think that the storyline was just totally fabricated?
I think they certainly had that knowledge base in place. These zombie ants that it was based off of, they've been around for a couple of decades, I believe, at least in terms of scientific discovery and all of that. And the way that fungi kind of acts as that parasite. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea, and it kind of revolutionized the world of zombies and made it seem way more real, because, you know, it's not just someone crawling out of a grave. It's like, oh, could this actually happen? And maybe.
I have a question. So, I mean, I did watch part of The Last of Us, but we didn't get very far. But it does remind me of, like, you know, with all these, oh my gosh, the cicadas that we had in the beginning of the season, they were apparently getting some kind of weird zombie thing happening to them too. Do you know what I'm talking about or no? Like, it was some kind of fungus, just the same, and they were spreading it from, you know, insect to insect essentially. Is that the same as what was happening to the ants, or is it different?
I don't know. I haven't heard about that. But I would assume
really? It was a big thing
pretty
there for a while,
similar.
and they were calling it zombie cicadas, and it was a fungus.
I didn't hear about the zombie cicadas.
Stop it!
Where have I been?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, so it was like making them mindless, and they were basically spreading it by like going through the motions of having sex, but basically it was like eating their guts from the inside out, and they would spread it that way.
Well, that's horrifying.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I didn't hear about the ants, but I did hear about the cicadas, if it was the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but I would bet it's probably a similar, like, cordyceps fungi.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because go ahead, Rob.
It's like some weird weekly news thing we could do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I brought this up before Last of Us even came out. There's a movie called The Girl with All the Gifts, which is the same. It's the same concept. The world's already been taken over by zombies that have been created through a fungus. It's a really good movie. I like it. But with that being said, has there ever been a plant-human crossover ever recorded? Has there ever been anything that actually happened like that, or something similar to that?
A plant-human crossover? That I don't know, but there's zoonotic viruses, which are viruses that have a non-human host, and eventually become a recombinant strain, so something new that can pass to humans. And I know that there are fungi or viruses that live on plants and somehow get transmitted to humans, but there's always kind of that vector, so that intermediate host in between. So at this point in time, I don't think we'd ever get something directly from plants.
Is there like, okay, so we evolve and we build up immune systems. Would that immune system, I mean, could insects or even humans to fight that fungus? I
think humans have some of the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just finishing that. Like, could the insects develop a immune system to fight off that fungus? I don't know. I mean, we take penicillin; it's been working for years. Would we ever develop an immune system to that?
That's a really good thought. I've never really thought about, animal immune systems. Human have one of the most robust immune systems that we know of through various evolution, and I know that our bodies work slightly different. well, not slightly different, very different than bugs and other animals. But I think, yeah, at some point through evolution, they would probably evolve some sort of defense.
Yeah, and as far as like as far as the like penicillin and stuff goes, that is made from fungus. If you think about like doctors have kind of pulled back on how often they are prescribing antibiotics. It used to be you had strep throat, they're going to throw antibiotics on you right away, right? Or other infections. Now they're saying let's wait it out because now they're people are becoming like the antibiotics aren't going to work, so it's like resistant, so the infection becomes resistant, or your body's ability to utilize that antibiotic to fight that infection is going to lessen over time because you keep getting the same antibiotic. So then they have to go to the next level and the next level and the next level. And so you can definitely develop like a situation where a certain antibiotic might not work for you anymore. But any other questions for Becca on The Last of Us?
I have a couple of questions.
Oh boy.
One, when did the cicadas get a publicist? We have spent more goddamn time on cicadas on this show.
Yeah,
And
but they're cool. They're kind of cool.
All we heard about, like, for the past year was the cicadas are coming. The cicadas are coming. Watch out, everybody. They're going to be coming out of the ground. It's going to be great. Cicada summer. I haven't seen one effing cicada this whole summer. I haven't heard one, but now we have the cicadas are coming. It's going to be awesome. Now we have them coming out that they're zombie cicadas. I want to know who's representing them because they're way too much play with like there's no big bang at the end. Like we were all like, oh, how to eat a cicada? We could even eat these guys. It's like, who's putting this information out? So I'm over cicadas. I've been over for that. Amy's put me over the top. Now I'm
Well, they're already like pretty much out of season. Now we just have the normal cicadas anyway, and it was mostly in Illinois, I think.
So for me, it's just normal, like it has been.
Yes.
The cicadas are gone, and there's no difference.
Yes.
Great, wonderful. I'm glad they were on the news so much.
Well, unless you lived in Illinois where they were painted the roads from being smashed on the roads, yeah. It was completely different down there from here, but nobody turned into a zombie, so we're okay.
They hate Wisconsin. They don't want to cross over the state line. What's their deal?
Yeah, weed's not legal here.
I was just going to say, yeah, they decided that they have no reason. They have no reason to come here. Everybody else from Illinois wants to come here. Why should
we got beer and cheese? So
I do have a quick question. Did you have another question, Brian?
Yeah, I was just going to ask her if you thought that The Last of Us was good, and when did you stop watching? Because I think we're the only ones that couldn't get through the first season. I know that's a pretty wicked take that we're not into it. Couldn't get into it. When did you stop?
Watched religiously, and I'm excited.
Oh,
I'm the same with that. I'm the same.
Well, and I was actually going to go kind of further in like that and just ask how you felt about the potential solution to the problem, the antidote, and how much thought may have gone into something like that.
I'm really excited to see what they come up with, actually, because I'm not familiar with antifungals beyond like the very low level ones for things like ringworm or when you inhale spores and it gets in your lungs and you have histo or blastoplasmosis. So for me, this is really exciting because I have absolutely no idea how that antidote would work. But I guarantee that the second they talk more about it, I will be Googling it furiously.
Is that how the season left off? Is that they're laying seeds that they have an antidote for it? Is that what they're doing?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be amazing if it's like somebody like digs out an old tube TV and puts in a VHS tape and it's a commercial of John Madden doing the Tough Actin' Tenactin commercial, and it's all you needed is Tenactin. That's what'll do it. That would be really funny.
The jock itch cream.
Yeah. That would be really funny.
We're not very good at, or at least I'm not very good at watching series. I'm not much of a TV watcher, so I didn't find it bad. But knowing that Brian didn't like it, I'll probably love it. So that's
hey, we felt exactly the same about Ghost Ship. Why am I getting shrapnel? We were like,
"Oh, I'm not giving you shrapnel, sweetie." Don't worry.
Well, and I guess just to go back, because you were talking about the zombie cicadas, not talk about the cicadas in general, but I was reading like more about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Becca, but how the whole zombie ant thing works is I guess they get infected or with this fungus. I don't know if they ingest it or whatever, and then it does take over the ant, and then the ant basically like has to have like it the fungus is trying to eat and have food, so I think the ant clamps onto like the end of a leaf or something like that, and then the fungus grows and grows and grows until finally it like makes the ant burst, and then the spores like fly out of the ant exploding and goes on the plant, and then it spreads to or the ground or whatever, and it spreads to more ants. So I think if I got that correct, like that's how the zombie ant thing, that's how it spreads from ant to ant.
Yes.
So they don't go around like jumping on each other and eating each other. I mean, they're eating the exploded ant. So did I get that right?
That's my understanding as well, and I think that's something the show did really well, showing that onset of what happens. You know, at the beginning of the show when someone's infected, there's a couple of days where they're fine, they're not really feeling good, but they're fine, and then they start doing this weird twitching. And I think that's pretty representative of the fungi taking over your nervous system and your brain. And yeah, like you said, eventually they become a walking fungus, and then they just poof and the spores go everywhere. And that tends to be, from what I know, the main modus of transmission for fungi. You know, the fruiting body, so the mushroom that we see on top, and the spores kind of just erupts and the wind carries. And if you inhale it or you eat it, you're kind of doomed if you have a weak immune system.
I guess so. I didn't even think about it like that. So who knows? Maybe someday. But fungi does require a certain temperature, though, correct? To grow or a certain environment. And right now, as we know, the human body is not a habitable host.
As far as I know, the human body is an habitable host, and also just our immune systems are too strong. So if someone's severely immunocompromised and fungi does mutate in a certain way, who knows? They could be patient zero down the line.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be scary? Yes, Brian. Yes.
I don't know if you have an answer or not, but we keep saying like, what if our body temperature changes and we become hospitable for the fungus? What if the fungus changes over time so that it doesn't need to have the temperature that we have? It needs a lower temperature to do its thing.
I think that's certainly a possibility, and the way fungus grows and rapidly changes to adapt, that's probably the more likely scenario.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
it for me. I gotta go cash out. Doesn't sound good for any of us. It sounds like
okay, so
I'm thinking also that where the ant eventually will die from this, the reason why humans won is because that's why zombies eat people, right? To stay healthy and keep from rotting and stuff, right?
Is that why?
I think so. I mean, in Return of the Living Dead, they eat brains, right? The zombie says it hurts. It hurts to die. So
Walking Dead's different, though.
Yeah.
They're all
And
different.
I think it's kind of like vampires. It depends on the book or the story for how they operate. You know, sometimes the living dead, their brains are so fried that they go so primal that it's just eat with no real purpose. You just kill. But maybe they need it. Maybe whatever's invaded their body requires that fuel. Who's to say?
Like me at midnight.
Like me on my midnight snacks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about like the Last of Us zombies, and for those of you that haven't seen the show, I invite you to go watch it. I do love it. Some of us like it, Brian. But what I want to know, Becca, then
not Twilight, no judgment.
Hey, lay off my Twilight. I should have worn my Twilight t-shirt tonight. That's what I should have done to really irritate you. I will next time. So Becca, question. So we talked about The Last of Us and how like that version of zombie is pretty exciting to you because just the way that they made it seem so plausible, even just the way that it was introduced and the way that it was talked about. What are your thoughts about like the zombies in Walking Dead or World War Z? I don't know if you've seen any of those, but like what's like World War Z one like is crazy because they're just so insanely fast. And the Kez said like if zombies were like if we do ever have zombies and they're World War Z zombies, they're gonna like just be done right then and there because we're like I'm not gonna take a risk. But what are your thoughts on the other types of zombies, zombie shows?
So right off the bat, I think Walking Dead, that's not going to happen. If a human body is dead, if the brain tissue is dead, you're not going to be able to reanimate that. That being said, in the past couple of decades, there have been a lot of studies where scientists are trying to reanimate cells or tissues in animals, and in some cases it works. It's not brain tissue, it's not brain cells, but they're working on reanimating other organs. So in a couple years, maybe 100 years, who knows if that's going to be possible? It's not going to be, Frankenstein's monster where you electrify it and it just reanimates. But in some form, maybe you could have like slight reanimation, but I wouldn't call them zombies because I think it would be very, very temporary. They wouldn't have a way to fuel themselves. But for brains, but for World War Z, which is a fantastic book, by the way, if you haven't read that.
I have not read that book.
Movie's
I
terrible.
have it if you want to borrow.
Oh, Brian.
Movie's terrible. The movie's terrible.
Brian.
The book is good.
Brian!
Brian.
You know who our skeptic is in the group, right, Becca?
Such a hater, Brian. Everything you hate, I seem to love.
I'm sorry. I like good zombie shows. And The Walking Dead is not a good zombie show either. There's really not a good one. But that's not the point. World War Z, it's a good book. It's not a great movie.
I'm curious what you think is a good zombie show.
Oh, God. Here we
Like
go.
it really is. The first season of Walking Dead was good. The first season.
So you're not really a zombie movie guy.
I like Return of the Living Dead. I like those. Those are good. I'm fine with those. I like those. Those are classics. There was actually a really cool movie where it was like a low budget movie, but the people were at like a horror convention, and somehow they get pulled into the original Living Dead movie, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know the name of it, so I just wasted everybody's time by saying that.
Yes, you did.
But Google what I said, everybody, and see if you can find it.
I love.
I know because we have like
I've seen bazillions of them, but yeah, nonetheless.
well, we have like Shaun of the Dead, which is like you have the comedy zombie movies,
Yeah, that's a great movie.
and then you have I don't know if you've seen the TV show iZombie, which is I think you watch all the seasons on Netflix. I really like that. At some point, I think we were caught up, and then we just never went back to it. So I would love to go back and finish out those those seasons. But iZombie is a premise of, they were infected by, I can't remember what it was that infected. It started on this party boat. And I think they ingested something and they all turned into zombies. And then but they could actually function. So they could walk, they could talk, and they needed brains to stay alive. But they could either be good zombies or bad zombies. And so the one of the people that were infected, she's like a medical examiner, like a doctor, and she is trying to like navigate this world of being a zombie and like keep her humanity. And I don't know, it's a pretty good show if you haven't seen it. But yeah, because I was really curious, like, well, I guess what's your favorite like type of zombie show, Becca, and like why does it appeal to you as an epidemiologist, I think?
So Brian's not going to like this, but I really do like World War Z. I think the way that the zombies target healthy hosts is so realistic. I don't know if you've seen the movie or read the book, but if someone has a pre-existing condition like a heart defect or cancer, the zombies kind of overlook them because they know it's not something that's going to be sustainable for them to feast on. And I think the way that it replicates so insanely fast probably wouldn't happen, but it's really cool to think about. So I like those zombie movies that make you think and try to figure out if it is actually possible. And when those authors pull in bits of science to make you go, okay, that could actually happen. So things like World War Z or The Last of Us absolutely have my attention, where Evil Dead Rise or Night of the Living Dead, it's kind of hokey and campy for me. You know, I'll watch it, but I don't have that could it happen feeling.
Yeah. It doesn't present it as like there's a difference between possible and plausible, and like when you have both of those married together, that's my favorite. Like
That's the magic.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. So, any questions for Becca before I see if she has any final thoughts on anything she wants to share with us?
You know, it's not really a question, but I do want to pimp. If you don't have the attention span that I do to watch 2 seasons of a series, that The Girl with All the Gifts is the same kind of concept, and it's a pretty good movie. Glenn Close is in it. I know it's not the big Hollywood films, or is it 20 to 30 years old, but nonetheless.
Yeah, we just put it on our watch list, and I can't wait to
do a
watch.
review in 20 years.
Yeah, we'll do a review in 20 years.
Rich, you watched iZombie, didn't you?
Yes, I liked it.
Okay,
I did not.
Somebody else in my house did not.
I did not like it. However, I thought the main girl was extremely talented to be able to act out all the different personalities, because when she ate their brains, then she took on that personality, and so she had to consistently change her acting to be a different type of character, and I admired her for that. But other than that, I thought the storyline was really stupid.
Becca, have you seen that at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, because I forgot about that part of it, Jenny. Yeah, so like when she eats brains, her like specialty is she sees everything that person, and she becomes that person until that one kind of digests through until the next brain comes along. So, and she doesn't eat like live people's brains. She gets them obviously from, she works in the morgue. So
She gets canned ones.
yes, they're canned ones. They're
What
canned.
about Santa Clarita Diet? Did any of you guys watch that one?
Oh,
Love that
yes, I
show.
love it.
That was a good one too, but I think she gets it from eating bad sushi or something like that. Like, I don't know, it's so improbable you would be like, oh my god, but it's great.
Yeah, I love Santa Clarita Diet and the head, just the
Yes.
head that's in
Yes.
the they keep in
That's
the
a-
basement. That's a really great one too. Yes, Brian.
I thought of a good zombie TV show. It's not a whole show, but it's an episode of a TV show, and it's probably the best zombie thing ever. It's season 2, episode 6 of Community Epidemiology, where they have their Halloween party. And
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah, that is a fantastic episode. Everybody
I've not seen that episode.
everybody watch Community.
I love Community, but I haven't seen all the
Never
episodes.
seen it.
It's a great episode. It's a great zombie episode, and yeah, so there. It's not a whole show, but it's one episode.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go. What was that again? Season what?
Season 2, episode 6.
Okay. I mean, I've seen some of the Community, the like episodes of Community. I loved it. I don't know if you've seen that before, Becca, or not, but it's pretty hilarious. Has Donald Glover in it, and can't remember who else.
Chevy Chase, Joel
I
McHale.
do like that one.
Jacob.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes of that. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, that one for sure I'm going to see. Well, Becca, I'm curious, what do you have any other thoughts or anything that you want to like bring up? Because we would love to like hear from your perspective, anything else that you might have to say on the subject, and like just either enlighten us or just because we have loved the information you've given us so far. So this is exciting.
Let us know if we're doomed or not.
I mean, we are. There will be another pandemic. It's just it probably won't be zombies.
Damn it.
You know, I don't know the answer to this, but thinking about zombies and how they're always like brains, I wonder why they crave that. Like maybe brains are really high in, I don't know, potassium or something.
That was answered in Return of the Living Dead. They have a zombie that they have it strapped down that actually talks, and that zombie says that they eat brains because it takes away the pain because it hurts to be dead.
Well, what about the brain makes it?
Well done, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you.
But what about the brain helps take the pain away? Is it like a Tylenol or?
Oh, no, it wasn't a scientist zombie. It was just a zombie.
Who knows? Maybe it's the LSD.
Could
Ooh,
be.
We also have the Night of the Comet zombies, and we have the Omega Man zombies. Omega Man, there's a good one. Omega Man's a great movie.
I don't know any of
Chuck
those.
Astin running around LA with a bunch of, it's a good movie.
What
It's
year is that?
Japanese.
What year is that from?
Omega Man,
Yeah, what year is it from?
like 78 maybe, something like that.
I wasn't watching zombie shows when I was 4.
That's a great movie.
I was.
I remember Blue Lagoon being on the TV when I was like 5 or 6, and my mom's like, "Get out of the room! You can't watch this." So
That was scary. That was a scary movie.
I'm sorry, Becca. So continue.
No, that's it. Just kind of posing that question. But, back to being a little kid, I totally watched movies like that when my parents weren't around. I've always been obsessed with this. And, I think I've always been a strange person because in 4th grade, I don't remember doing this, but my mom says that we got to pick a topic, any world event to write a paper on, and I chose the Black Plague. Like,
Nice.
just a really bizarre choice. But it's fascinating.
4th grader. I'm gonna write on the Black Plague. No wonder you became an epidemiologist.
I mean, they should have put me in therapy for that.
That is awesome. Well, you and Rob, I feel like Rob would be one of those people, like, 3rd or 4th grade, want to do his actually, I think medieval torture. I think medieval tortures might have been your topic.
No, I did my report in 6th grade on the Loch Ness Monster, and when I was in Catholic school, we had to draw this picture of something religious, and I did last rites. Did a car crash. I was like 2nd or 3rd grade.
I love that you're laughing about it.
Well, because I remember they said they were going to put it in some show for something, but I actually wrote Sears on the side of the truck that was in the accident. They were like, "No way, you put a name on there. There's no way it can be put up for everybody to see." So,
It's probably because it was the last rites in a car crash, but they just used Sears as an excuse.
yeah.
Oh my
But
god!
I do appreciate that you said Frankenstein's monster and not Frankenstein. Thank you.
She's a real one. She's a real one. I can talk all weird shit with Becca. It's awesome. Well, are there any final thoughts from anybody before we close down? Yes, Brian.
I totally forgot when we were doing zombies because we've been talking about this for a while, and maybe we can do this on another episode for SCARETOBER, or maybe we can do Weird Weekly News on it or something. But there's a fun game that we played years ago where you have to make a zombie team. So it's in the world of The Walking Dead. You have to put together a team of 5 people from pop culture and literature. So you can pick like books, movies, TV, any fictional character, but they can't have superpowers. And they can't be a Jedi or somebody like that.
I was already, first thing I thought of was Ben Kenobi.
So it can't be somebody with superpowers, but you can pick 5 fictional characters. You get to have yourself and your spouse are automatically on the team, so you don't have to take a spot with your spouse. But, I mean, you don't have to, Rob. We normally do it that way.
I need somebody to shoot in the knee to get away buy me some time to get away.
Becca, by the way, Rob and Amy are married, and Rich and Jenny are married. So, well, I mean, we can do it really quickly right now. Becca, do you have the time to do this real quick?
Oh, wait a minute,
Absolutely.
because Batman would count then. He doesn't have superpowers.
You can pick.
Doesn't have superpowers.
He does not have superpowers. You could pick Tony Stark. He doesn't have superpowers, but you get a super brain. So yes, you can do that.
All right, let's start with Becca. Your team of 5.
Oh, that's hard. I think I would pick probably Daryl from The Walking Dead. I know that might be a weird choice, but he has that, that lived experience.
Yeah.
I would probably pick some type of doctor because I'm bound to, trip and hurt myself or get some type of infection and die from natural causes. I think probably some comedian, just for a little levity. And, maybe they could be the one we sacrifice, if need be. I don't know. That's hard to come up with actual characters.
On the spot, right?
Yeah.
That's why we can do a weird weekly news.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That's
it's a lot to think of, but it's a lot of fun. You can pick from anything, any fictional character ever.
Just got me down.
All right, we're gonna do it then. We're gonna do that. Becca, I just wanted to hear yours, just so that we had that for reference sake. We'll make sure we refer to that. We did have I received a text and a message during this podcast. Amy sent me the link for the zombie cicadas, and Brian sent me the link for the ants, the zombie ants that the show was made from, that apparently attacked a tarantula. So I'm going to post that. I don't have time to read it, obviously, to discuss it now, but when we put this episode out, I'll post that so that we can, or maybe I'll put it as a teaser, but I think that would be an interesting read. So Becca, I'll make sure I get that article to you so that you can read it as well. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode. This was a great out of the gate for our first full episode for season 6, talking about zombies. So before I go, anybody have any final thoughts?
Yeah, those cicadas are freaky deaky. That Amy sent. Now it's all starting to make sense why they have their publicist. They are some freaky deaky cicadas.
They're kind of a big deal.
Well,
I can't wait to look at this article. So
I never thought that I would see an article about cicadas that they're sexually transmitting fungus, because boy, are they hypersexual. That's a weird thing that I never thought of.
It does. It says zombie cicadas are cicadas infected by sexually transmitted fungus that causes them to behave in a hypersexual manner.
Yeah.
The symptoms, behavior, transmission. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, I'll be posting this. So.
That explains a lot.
Right?
Well, great to talk to you. I really, really enjoyed hearing your perspective on different things.
Yep. I was listening, even though I wasn't sitting right here.
And Becca is always so great at speaking. Like, I'm always engaged when she's giving anything at work. So she's just so knowledgeable. So thank you so much for coming on this show and sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciated it.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, round of applause for Becca.
Thank you for having me. It was fantastic talking with you all.
All right. Well, at least she learned one thing from us, that Brian is a hater. I mean, she picked up on that right away. Like, nobody had to say it.
I'm just super objective. That's all. Not a hater. Anything. Like plenty of stuff.
Well, guys, join us again. So we'll see you here in a couple of days. We'll have another movie review after this one. So continue to stay with us during our SCARETOBER extravaganza. 2 episodes a week. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, iTunes, and podcasts, and a few others. So I always post a link. We're on YouTube. If you want to see our smiling faces, you can always go to YouTube and watch the video version of this. Find us on Facebook. And then I need to plug for anybody that is in this area, the Southeast Wisconsin or Northern Illinois area. We are helping host a Paracon, a paranormal conference, which will be November 2nd from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's going to be at the Old Cortese's Banquet Hall, which has some rumors of mafia visitors through the years. So who knows what's happened there. But it is now the Danish Brotherhood's new home. And they were kind enough to open it up to us to have this event there. So we've partnered with some other teams. So come on out. We're going to have some great vendors. There'll be about 25 vendors there. And we have speakers, and it is $10 pre-sale to get in. So the pre-sale tickets are available on our Facebook page and also on the Bell City Paracon page. You can find that. And $10 gets you in for all day and all the speakers. We have people coming from all over that have been on TV, that own haunted properties. We have people that own a production company that put out horror films and do investigations. So we have lots on the docket for that, and there'll be food, so you can come pay $10, stay all day and play with us. And then if you're really daring, we're doing an investigation that night of the venue. That's a separate ticketed event. It's $20. There is only 10 more spots available. So at the time of this recording, I don't know if those 10 spots will still be there by the time this airs, but come on, check it out. So thanks again, Becca, and we'll see everybody very soon. Stay weird. Ciao.
Bye.
Yep.